Hello, CH110, Introduction to Chemistry. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chapter 6, Module 6. We're looking at now full-on chemical reactions. We're going to be focusing on things like the energy changes of chemical reactions, the rates at which they occur, and the concept of equilibrium. So remember, we said at the very beginning, chemistry is the study of matter, changes in matter, and the energy associated with those changes. So matter changing can be a chemical reaction, and the energy now associated with those reactions is what we're going to be looking at in this first section, 6.1. Recall that we said chemical reactions are bonds breaking and new bonds forming. Okay? We're going to have that definition in mind the whole time as we talk about energy changes. So here's a figure from the beginning of the chapter, and I want to spend some time talking about what this figure is even showing, like what's going on here. So the caption says that biomolecules undergo combustion to form products with low potential energy and give off energy in the process. Right? So we have some reactants and reaction occurs and then we produce products and it says that those products have lower potential energy than the reactants. So if there's lower energy now, but energy is conserved, right? It doesn't disappear. It goes into the surroundings, right? But the actual reaction system now has lower energy. And I want you to start thinking lower energy means more stable. Okay, so this figure on the y-axis shows potential energy. So the higher up on the axis, higher energy, and then down at the bottom we had lower potential energy, right? And across the x-axis it says reaction progress. Okay, so that's kind of an abstract axis. It's not showing space. It's not really showing time necessarily. It just says, as we go from reactants to products. So the progress of the reaction would be, going to completion, producing all products. And then the actual plot here shows like we have some reactants, right, further on to the left in the reaction progress, glucose and oxygen. And as we go forward through the reaction, we get to the products, and the products have uh, lower energy, carbon dioxide and water. And so in the process of going from reactants to products, the energy of you know, the molecules themselves and the bonds and everything is less. And so the energy that is now lost or that is given away as a process of this reaction. This particular reaction um, uses that energy that's given away uh, to make ATP, which is used for energy for cellular work. And also a little bit of heat will end up being given away. So this is kind of a hint of what's to come, kind of a preview, I guess, right, of showing that there's an energy difference in reactants and products, and that energy difference matters. In this case, it's going to like actually allow your cell to do cellular work. So if we're talking about energy, we want to be able to quantify energy. We want to be able to measure energy. We need to talk about units, right? We want to measure things in science, and so we always need units. So we're going to talk about units of energy, and there are three, basically two, but the third one is derived from one. So if we want to measure energy, the basic one way is to talk about a calorie, right? And this is a term that you've all heard before, I know, but it has a very specific definition. So the calorie, or a CAL, right, cal, is defined as the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree C. So 1 calorie raises 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. That's a very scientific definition, right? Turns out that's actually a really small amount of energy. And so We've also made up capital C calorie, which is a kilocalorie. Remember, kilo means 1,000, right? So one capital C calorie is equal to 1,000 little c calories. Or you could think of it as the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree C. And this capital C calorie is a nutritional calorie. So when we talk about calories, like in terms of nutrition or the food that we eat, right? Like here's a picture of a Cheez-Its label for some reason, Cheez-Its, and it shows calories as being 130, right? So that's capital C calorie, 130. The scientific SI unit, the standard international unit, is actually called the joule. So one joule is similar, but it has a different definition. It's the amount of energy required to lift 1 kilogram by 10 centimeters. So that sounds kind of weird, but you could think about energy as lifting something from a distance of a height 10 centimeters. That'd be the energy required to do that. And as always, we have a conversion factor between these units. So actually, here's another. These are two conversion factors between calories and big calories and calorie and joules. Okay. So as with all other units, dimensional analysis can be used to interconvert between units of energy. Right? So let's practice this exercise 6.1 here, and we say convert these into calories. So 5.79 kilocalories and 48.8 joules. Well, I told you, unit conversions are going to come up all the time, right? So we want to convert from kilocalories into calories, and so we know that there are 1,000 little c calories per kilocal. Oh, and we also know that, kilocal is equal to capital C calorie. So to avoid having to say big C calories and little c calories, I will probably just say calories and kilocalories, or kilocals, or kcals. Yeah, it's a lot of things, but kcal is equivalent to big C calorie. Okay, right. So here, right, we just multiply by 1,000, and we end up with 5,790 calories. And for joules, we can look up this conversion factor, and it's actually right here, right? 1 calorie is 4.184 joules. Capital J is joules. So we would end up with 11.7 joules. And here's that work again, same that we just did. And there. Okay, so we have three different units, right? Joules, cals, kcals. Which unit of energy represents the largest amount of energy? Right? So like an inch is bigger than a centimeter, right? Which unit of energy represents the largest amount of energy? You can go ahead and answer for yourself. And when you're ready, I will tell you 1 kcal, 1 capital C calorie, is the largest amount of energy. Right? It takes 1,000 little calories to make that. And 1 calorie is 4.184 joules, so it takes 4,184 joules just to fit into 1 big cal. So 1 big cal is the largest unit. Again, you could think if you were to measure some amount of energy, the big kcals would have the lowest value, the smallest number, because the unit itself is larger, right? Okay, here's another question. A nutritional label lists the energy content of the food as 70 calories, big C calories. How many calories, little c calories, is this? Okay. Well, this one, hopefully, we can do this one without a calculator, right? 70 times 1,000, so it's 70,000. Okay, we will stop here and come back in part two to talk about the difference when energy is released from a reaction versus when energy is required for the reaction to go forward. So endothermic and exothermic reactions coming up next.